Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. I'm your host, James Jones. It is August 22nd, 2024, and I'm joined today by Mr. Guillaume Veillette.
Good evening.
Mr. Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
And Mr. John Lindemann.
Hello, James.
Okay.
Hello, John. It is episode 889, which is not nearly as exciting as 888, and also significantly less likely to have a line about waifus in it. Which I did want to add a relatively sad, I don't know, maybe slightly sad, less than happy update on that front, because
where are you going with this?
The Animal Crossing Pocket Camp that we talked about last week in that segment is going to the great beyond as well.
Killed another one.
Leaving Nintendo with Fire Emblem and Pikmin, because they didn't really have anything to do with the Pokemon Go. Fire Emblem and Pikmin, like we always knew. And Mario Run, but Mario Run just kind of exists. Actually, they say they are developing an offline gameplay for Animal Crossing. But yeah, it's honestly though, like, the game's been around a while, and mobile games don't tend to last super long. But I mean, it really makes emphasis on the fact Nintendo has pivoted the fuck away from mobile games.
Yeah.
Like, they pivoted into it because they had to. They pivoted out because they could.
Yeah. And so it goes to show that they never really wanted to do it in the first place.
Oh, and Mario Kart. Mario Kart is also out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that does kind of show that, like, you know, maybe they're leaving on some of the ones that still make money because you might as well. But it's probably not it's probably projects they weren't super excited about doing.
Yeah.
They might have been excited about the prospect of making a bunch of money, but I'm going to be honest, like, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp was not nearly as exploitative as it could have been. No. Not that I'm calling for it to be exploitative, but, like, it was awfully gracious with what it let you get.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole mobile model really goes against what Nintendo stands for as a company.
Yeah.
It really is not in their DNA.
I know multiple people who played Pocket Camp for over a year and spent none cents on it.
Yeah.
And it was like, they could have made it so you needed to. I mean, we talked about it at the time. Like, they could have done something really fucked up and put, like, yeah, we're not doing any kind of gacha in the new Animal Crossing game on Switch, but we'll let you transfer items from Animal Crossing Pocket Camp to Switch, and we'll put gacha in the Pocket Camp game. So we, like, backdoor it into the Switch, but it won't get caught for gambling on Switch because you have to do extra steps. It's just gambling with extra steps. But they didn't do that because, like your point, it's somewhat antithetical to their way of thinking. So they didn't. And so, yeah, this game is going into some kind of weird offline mode that they're going to try to release in October. So yeah, get your last opportunities to give Nintendo your bells in before it goes away, I guess.
But it's still going to be an offline mobile game.
That is apparently the case, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
It says, well, hold on. Animal Crossing Pocket Camp to end online services in November. Premium app forthcoming.
Okay. So yeah, sounds like it's going to be a for pay mobile app.
The game monetized through subscription sales of Leaf tickets. The former will cease following a maintenance period of October 28th, with auto-renew billing disabled, while the latter will stop on November 26th. Refunds on Leaf tickets will be available after the shutdown. Players with Nintendo accounts linked to their saves will be able to move their data to a paid application around EOS and play it offline. But they will no longer be able to visit other camps or receive gifts, which really just takes a lot of what is Animal Crossing out of it.
Yeah.
It feels like they're really neutering this thing.
Yep.
It's kind of funny they're charging for the app afterwards, but I don't know. It's very weird. But yeah, that's another one down.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to kind of go into maintenance mode, and then if you want to buy it, you can buy it, but what you get is what you get.
Yeah. Somebody else did confirm that Nintendo was talking about a Zelda mobile game. I wasn't losing my mind. It just never materialized. Presumably because their fortune started to turn and they're like, fuck this!
Well, I mean, when they made the big show of with the DNA partnership, right? You know, I think it was did they say 5 games up front? And you know, but they've got equity, you know, each in each other, and it's a partnership and all that. You know, and then I mean, they never hit that 5. Because, I mean, like Dragalia was a Cygames partnership, right. So that didn't even count. So, yeah, they definitely pivoted out of it. I don't know where that leaves any potential future, you know, kind of if they ever do see any value in it for something one day without some sort of precipitous decline in their dedicated, you know, kind of software business on dedicated, devices. But, you know, I think probably the big franchise we didn't mention last week that I would have thought of other than Zelda, which you're right, kind of like you feel like if they needed to just a bit longer, we probably would have got a Zelda one. But Splatoon, I would have thought is something that you feel like there's some opportunity there. You know, especially with the emphasis on like fashion and trends and stuff in there, you know, it wouldn't necessarily even have to be that directly as kind of tied into, you know, the Splatoon gameplay to maybe make something, of a, you know, a mobile app, you know, that could work that's Splatoon themed or in that world or whatever. But, if it had to get that far, I can only assume that would have been sort of on the menu, as it were, but we just didn't get that far.
Well, it is. I would be very curious to see what they did with Splatoon. But yeah, they didn't. We never got there, or even like a Nintendo Sports thing or something. Just, you know, anything else. But I guess they're just done. They're just done with mobile, and they're out. And they're going to let the stuff that's still out there make money until it doesn't make money anymore. And they're not going to make any effort to revive it. They're just going to cut bait and let it go. Well, you know, I do wonder if they're making any money on that DNA partnership. Because remember, they bought a bunch of DNA stock.
No, exactly, yeah, and DNA got Nintendo stock, you know, they each had equity in the other, so it's, you know, again, I do feel like it was more of making a show to investors of like, we're serious about this, you know, we're not, just kind of, this is not a token gesture, but in some ways, you know, it was very much a gesture, and, it wasn't, again, they didn't even live up to that kind of initial commitment of the number of games, and they were slow with the ones that did come. I mean, look, you're working in a new space for the first time. Sure, there's always likely to be things that take longer than you think they're going to when you haven't got that direct experience. And certainly, I mean, they can take longer even when you do have that direct experience. But yeah, it was all a bit sort of, didn't really materialize in full, which, you know, I'm sure there's a number of reasons for that, but clearly, you know, the rate at which the rate at which Switch turned around their fortunes was definitely a big one. And, you know, well, as we wait for the details of the next system, I guess you kind of feel like it is probably going to have to take some sort of misfire on that front to get anything kind of going again on the mobile side.
Well, I have no interest in seeing that happen then. I did think about getting Mario. I was listening to the episode last week and I thought about getting Mario Run just to know, because like we've talked about it for damn near a decade and I don't think any of us have ever played it. And it's like, what if I just played it? What if I just said, fuck it. I'm gonna launch it and I'm gonna go look at it and I'll talk about it on the show in a very timely 10 years later sort of way. But then I just didn't. Like, I brought it up and I looked at it and I'm like, actually I looked at Google Play, the Google Play Store app, and it's just a fucking nightmare because like you search for Mario, and you would think that they would, Google being a Mario partner would make some effort. And nah, it's just straight up stolen Mario asset game after game after game after game with the same fucking names.
It was unveiled with Apple, right? So I don't know if there's any legacy effect of that. If I say, screw that shit, well, I can go down the results on the Google Store. I have no idea.
It's like some of this shit is just, I don't even think blatant is the right word, because blatant implies that there's like a crassness to it, where this is just straight up like, no, here it is. Here's the whole thing. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna install Super Mario Run. Pray for me. But we're not gonna deal with that today because they're gonna do new business. That was a fucking sick transition, by the way. And I'm gonna lead us off because I played a little bit of something. The game I played is The Final Round. This is a Arcade Archives release from about 2 weeks ago. I poked at it a couple different times. I kept trying to make it work because I launched the Super Nintendo app, and I basically played Super Punch-Out front to back until the end of the last tournament, where I just couldn't fucking deal anymore. And so I was like, all right, well, Hard Puncher is in the eShop as I was going through the eShop looking for something to play. And I thought, well, this boxing game looks weird. I'll give it a shot. And I was correct about that first assessment. That boxing game looks weird. This is a side view boxing game from 1988, from Konami of all people, released in Japan as Hard Puncher, Bloodsoaked Glory. Which,
like, it's not even that dramatic,
No. Are you criticizing my read or their name?
No, I'm saying is every fight blood-soaked?
No, there's no blood in the game at all.
Yeah. Makes it sound like it's some sort of massacre.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how I like my boxing.
Like it's Mortal Kombat or something. It's not even that. Not even close to that.
I actually really don't like boxing when somebody springs a leak, to be honest. It's not really my thing. John was reading off the names of the boxers. Your player characters are Jabbin' Jim, modeled after Rocky Balboa, or Gentleman Joe, modeled after Bill Reiser, who's from the Contra franchise, known as Joe Vulcan in the Japanese release, which is a much better name.
Yeah, it's a fantastic name, Joe Vulcan.
But how much better would it have been if the other boxer was not modeled after Bill Reiser, but was modeled after Paul Reiser, who gave his name to Bill Reiser.
Shady and aliens, very shady.
It's like just this small, for a boxer, perfectly ordinary sort of looking man. It's basically Little Mac, but Paul Reiser. I mean, come on.
I'll never be able to think of Bill Reiser the same way again, I swear.
Just they did it. They just cobbled alien names together to get their characters and cast member names. Yeah, because Lance, he's like Lance Henriksen, and then Lance Bean, right, and Michael Bean. They're all from somebody on the cast. It's pretty brazen, and that was the thing. The one thing I did sort of see written about this game when it was announced for Arcade Archives release was a little bit of surprise in terms of. This has some real, Rocky with the serial numbers barely even scratched, and that anyone would even risk it at this point. It was the way. Obviously, you think of the arcade Punch-Out games, like your sort of wireframe protagonist guy. Like his portrait is quite Stallone-y, before it was sort of retconned into a very small man for a boxer for perspective reasons on NES. He was kind of a Stallone looking guy. So it was, you can't, for anybody who didn't, I didn't really live through it because I was an infant at the time, but at least it was the recent past by the time I did start to be aware of the world. But just how ridiculously massive Stallone and Rocky in particular were in the mid-80s. Like, I think, 85 is the year that Rocky 4 and Rambo 2 are 2 of the top 3 at the US box office. So, you know, it's just like, especially like Japanese developers around this time just felt like they could get away with this stuff. Konami in particular. I mean, like, you think of like the portraits in Metal Gear and stuff. Like, it was just like Sean Connery, like just anybody that could get off. I mean, the Colonel is so blatantly Troutman, even in like years later in Metal Gear Solid, he's very blatantly, the character from Rambo. Like, they just seemingly didn't give a shit. They would just nick anything.
It's, I mean, I guess they did get away. I guess history proved them right. So, to continue on through the actual opponents, we have Knockout Nick, who's just Clubber Lang. He was called Mr. Mohican in the Japanese version because they were hiding nothing. They called him that because he had a mohawk. That's it. Clubber Lang was in no way, shape, or form Mohican. Red Falco, who was just an English boxer. He was Red Falcon. Mad Mongol, which is definitely not like people say like, you can't do the characters from Punch Out anymore. They called this character Mad Mongol.
Yeah.
No, we're good. This is a step further. Iron Drago, which I don't know what that's inspired by at all. Completely original.
Yeah.
So is it that sort of guy that was often a villain in 80s movies, Billy Drago? It must be that. It must be.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's it. This was John's favorites. Steel Fist Fritz. John, where's Steel Fist Fritz from?
I mean, you would think that would be a tell for a certain part of the world, a certain country, if you will, but Fritz is of course, obviously, from Italy.
Yeah, no, of course.
It's a very Italian name, has a very deep roots in Italy. Fritz.
The Bronx Bruiser, who's Brazilian.
Yep, of course.
Fuck it. The Harlem Hitman, which is definitely... I never saw Harlem Hitman. I'm going to assume that it's culturally sensitive. Murderous Hitter of Unknown Origins. His name's Harlem Hitman!
Exactly.
Unknown Origins, or are you just not fucking trying? And then your Mike Tyson stand-in, Black Stallion. So I'm gonna go ahead and say.
Well, that's the thing. At least with that, maybe they had the sense to not go too close, because of course, you know, years later with Street Fighter 2, that's how we ended up with the farce with the boss names, wasn't it? Because they named the boxer M. Bison originally, because it was clearly modelled on Mike Tyson. And then when they were faced with the prospect of taking it to the rest of the world, it's like, that we're not going to get away with that, are we? So they all had, well, not all, because Sagat stayed Sagat, but everyone else had to change. So M. Bison became the dictator guy. And Balrog and Vega, the boxer became Balrog, right? So, yeah, it's just, it does show that there was a bit of an evolution on some of this stuff, but yeah, I guess maybe even then Konami knew, like, Tyson was such a hot property in the mid-80s before his disgrace. Yeah. Obviously, Nintendo kind of locked into having his rights because they kind of got in on the ground floor. Being sort of operated to a degree out of New York and in this sort of Kid Dynamite phase before he got like to be a megastar. So you didn't mess with that. So I guess at least they had a bit more caution there.
There are some Easter eggs that were cut out of the US release, including a joystick commands that caused birds to the birds appeared at the start of a ring, appeared in the ring at the start of a fight depending on the damage. Like, it was like a random Easter egg where if you had a certain amount of damage dealt, the birds would show up. And if you cleared the match in a certain amount of time, the ref would have a Moai head instead. All that got pulled out of the US version because it would have been confusing. But the format of this game is weird. So it is straight on boxing rather than like locked isometric. So you can move around the ring. You can move in 2 dimensions, but side to side and into the ring. But it's always shot from, to use a wrestling term, the hard camera angle. So one side of the ring, it's always shot from that side. the challenge with that is it's really hard to tell when your punches connect. You'd think like, well, you could just tell from people reacting, right? No. It's also not clear, like, are some people's reach longer than the other because they're just flat images. And so I'll be punching and they'll be punching and neither of us will be hitting each other like it's fucking Rock'em Sock'em Robots. And then eventually I'll just start taking damage. Or we'll both extend our punch and one of us will take damage, which would be a thing if one person's arm was longer than the other. But it doesn't seem to be the case. And even if I get the punch out first, there were times where I took the hit anyway. And I don't know if it's because my arm's not long enough, or if the game's just hit detection sucks, or something. I don't know. But like my fist clearly came out first before theirs did, and yet I took the hit. A game where you can't predictably hit your opponent in a boxing game is a problem. And as a consequence, I have not been successful at this game at all. It is very difficult. I have gotten through, I think, the 4th round and have not been able to clear the 4th round, which I believe is, yeah, that's Iron Drago. So I've never gotten to see Steel Fist Fritz. His Germano-Italian nature is lost on me, but I have seen the Dolph Lundgren, and it's just Dolph Lundgren. It's just Dolph Lundgren. But what is a little bit interesting about this game is every 2 matches, it's got a little bit of an RPG mechanics. Every 2 matches, you get an opportunity to pick a minigame. And that minigame will boost one of your stats. So one of them is a speed stat. One of them is, I think there's a power stat, and then there's a stamina one. And so it's actually a minigame, and you're rewarded based on how well you do. So like the minigame one looks, actually all of them look very Ivan Drago training in a Soviet facility. I can't remember. Do they explicitly show him getting shot up with horse steroids?
They do, yeah. He's getting shot up with something. I don't think it says horse steroids on the needle, and I mean, it wouldn't make sense for the needle to have English on it at all if it was going to have But it's kind of, the montage, it's a classic. I mean, you know, I'm not going to argue with its montage credentials, but it's like, it kind of starts off and it's like low tech, high tech, right? Rocky, right. The man of the earth is just running up a mountain. He's lifting up a wooden cart or whatever, you know. Meanwhile, Drago's got all the high tech shit, you know. And but then I think at some point in the, you know, it's been implied, you're basically assuming he's been getting juiced, but it's like maybe halfway through that kind of trading off between low tech, high tech, that it's like, no, they're just injecting him with stuff.
Well, yeah, but on the other hand, like, isn't this the one where Stallone is chasing after a chicken?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is one of his low-tech, kind of exercises, yeah.
He's moved to Siberia to prepare for this match. And like, he's winning over the Russian people around him or some shit. It's so weird.
Oh my God! Does he do the chicken thing in one of the earlier ones as well? I forget now, because obviously it's always baked into the Rocky thing.
The chicken ones wouldn't have made sense in the Philadelphia-based ones.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think, because he was using, you know, big carcasses of meat for heavy bags. Like, it was always like, you know, in the original, right? So it's always like he hasn't got equipment because he's not a professional. You know, at the beginning, he's just a guy that boxes a bit. He hasn't got access to the best stuff, you know, to do everything.
He's a tune-up opponent.
Yeah, exactly. It's a gimmick match, right? Apollo Creed's just like, I'm going to give a regular guy, you know, as close to a regular guy as anyone will allow to be in the ring with me to have a shot. Like, that's the whole gag, right? So it's always baked in there somewhere, and this is just the latest extrapolation of that with the Soviets, with all their immense technology that America could never dream of. He has to face this down.
Which and it's like him carrying firewood to the cabin, and then it's Ivan Drago in like an 80s futurism fantasy with
the treadmill and that's like ramping up
and
and the sort of the pressure detector for detect his punching, you're measuring his punching power, which like is earlier in the film as well, but they bring that back and it's just like he just keeps that punching power just keeps ramping up every time he hits it or whatever.
Well, hot ladies and science garbs are looking on approvingly.
I mean, look, Dolph Lundgren was a very handsome man. I can believe that part.
Yep.
But it's such a basically you play the mini games as Ivan Drago and you level up whatever stat is relevant for them. I don't know that it makes a huge difference because, like I said, I haven't made it to the second time that happened.
Like in the first Mortal Kombat, they even had something a little bit analogous to this, did they not? The whole like test your might or whatever it was.
Yeah, but I don't know that it gave you any boosts.
Probably not. I can't remember.
Didn't one of the NES wrestling games have something like that, John?
I can't really recall. Not the original wrestling, that's for sure. Pro wrestling.
No, I feel like one of them had little mini games like that.
Yeah.
Where like you got some stat boosts on it. But again, because I never know when I'm hitting somebody, does it do me any fucking good if I can punch faster?
Yeah. Yeah, these games are usually it's kind of a weird use of RPG elements or any kind of level up because first off they're arcade games. So
right.
Usually they're meant to extract quarters out of you and not give you any advantage of any sort or allow you to game the system, I guess, even if you can, which to me implies that probably anything you do doesn't make a difference, really. It's just cosmetic.
Probably not.
So, yeah. Strange choice.
Well, the Guillaume's linked to the official or the unofficial Game Facts strategy guide that does say the general tips that will surely come in handy to play and win the game. Distribute your attribute points wisely.
Interesting.
Keep in mind that if you give a character, let's say, a lot of stamina, he will be very durable, but his punches will be too weak and slow. I don't recommend to keep a stat at less than 25%. Fight from a distance when facing foes with moves like Blackout Blast. What the fuck? That sounds like a Kool-Aid flavor. No, actually, that sounds like a scissor
thankfully you've got all the
flavor.
bios and I guess their signature moves, if you scroll up in the FAQ. But yeah, like, I just thought, like, I needed to know, like, I was gonna ask you, like, did you look for strategies for this game? And then I thought, well, are there any strategies? And this is the one thing that I found on GameFAQs. So I'm, yeah, like, good luck, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like the answer is no.
Yeah.
There's apparently a thing called secrets and crazy stuff in this guide. This game also has multiple endings. What? Why does this game have multiple endings? There's a good ending and a best ending and a regular ending. What the fuck? Tiny green balls floating in front of your fighter statue, forming the word strong. The sky is now purple. Also, your statue is now made of gold. You get this ending if your total fight time is 7:59 or less.
Yeah, as far as I could tell, the word that the floating balls spell is different. The color of the sky and your statue. So it's not, like you're not getting big lore dumps at the end there.
Hold on. The good ending. This is the good ending.
Yeah?
The good one. You get all the above. Then you get the green balls that start floating in front of your fighter statue, forming the word victory. The sky is now red. My favorite. This is the ending if your total fight time is between 8 and 10 minutes. How is the sky being red a good ending?
Well, it's probably, the sun is setting or something. I don't know. I'm sure it doesn't mean that the world is ending. That would be pretty bad.
It's the end of the goddamn world.
And there was a time where, for whatever reason, the real reason of it's just the modest amounts of memory and time that anyone had to dedicate to frivolous things like, sort of grading, various sort of degrees of quality of ending. But it's like with, I remember Mario Kart Super Circuit, I should say,
yes,
on the GBA. like that the sort of reward for getting, like all the best ranks on not just winning the cups, but doing it with the best rank, where basically like you cannot get hit once. All it did was change the title screen sky to like nighttime. That was it. So I mean, this and that was 10 years or more after this game. So for whatever reason, the color of the sky was a leading indicator in a lot of these sort of games about competition and how well you did something.
Wait, hold on. So the ending of the game has your character has a bunch of different scenes of your character, including one in a public park. Apparently, a lot of these things say they're only in the Japanese version. This one does not. When you win the game and get to the park scene, look carefully in the background to spot two hitmen armed with Uzis gunning down a poor guy. The girl next to him tries to run. What the fuck?
Wow.
What?
So I guess that's the blood-soaked
blood-soaked
glory part of it, I guess.
You see, you thought we weren't delivering on the blood soaking, but here it is. What the fuck is this game? So I don't recommend you buy this game at all, in the slightest, in even the most like remote sense of the word. I think it is a continuation of our long-standing like, who the fuck is approving this shit over at Arcade Archives team? Because like, why this game? Who woke up and said this is the day? Today is the day we hard punch. The game is Hard Puncher in Japan, and Hamster is Japanese. That person is not helping their case that they're not a bad employee. But we say that, but like, it's been a curious few games, like Arcade Archives, Tecmo Stackers, Knuckleheads, and the Ninja Kids. Those are 3 separate games. I understand why you might be surprised by that. I mean, it's still got a long way to go from Tinkle Pit. Arcade Archives Tinkle Pit.
Konami was crazy. I'm trying to find the endings for the final round on YouTube, and what comes up is Devastators. And the 2 guys in it from Konami, and the 2 guys in it are total John Rambo ripoffs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just blatant.
Oh yeah, well, it's already done. I mean, with Contra was Arnie and Sly, wasn't it? That's what the 2 characters were. Even though neither of them were in Aliens, which was what they were, taking the names from. It was clearly that was meant to be the appeal. Co-op, Arnie and Sly together, which wouldn't happen on screen for ages. Sadly.
Jab and Jim.
Jab and Jim.
Jab and Jim. Jab and Jim. Knockout Nick.
Man.
It's
so stupid.
It's terrible. It's just terrible. It's like, I mean, 88 was probably, I don't know if it was peak arcade, but it was up there where games were just getting dumped out there.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just, yeah. So you had stuff that was just so derivative and just complete.
Just dumb.
Yeah, just
well, that's
just
one of the nice, to be fair, one of the nice things about what the Arcade Archives does is it kind of helps preserve some of this arcade stuff where it's like things that did not get home ports that were famous, all good. And then, things that have not been reissued for ages. Quite a lot out of Konami, isn't there? Because, until Arcade Archives, I don't think Sunset Riders had been reissued for a long time. And there's another game that's quite similar, that's like ninja themed, that they did more recently. This stuff is just kind of lost to a fair degree, without some sort of reissue. And it seems like, they've been able to, contract with Konami and get some of that stuff that they've previously shown no interest in kind of, dealing with back out there, which, in this particular case may not be a game of the highest merit or whatever, but it's a window into that time. In gaming, in media generally, culture, it's another one of those things, isn't it?
Which it's kind capsule.
I'm glad that it is out there.
Yeah, there's just so much stuff that's come out on this service where it's just like, what the fuck? Tinkle Pit chief among them is a weird fucking game. If you don't know, if you've never seen it, you should look. I don't know that you should engage. I would say don't, but yeah, it's fucking weird, man. It's fucking weird. All right, I'm gonna move on. Guillaume, did you want to talk about anything, or are you just gonna skip today?
I think I'm gonna have to skip. I basically Yakuza zeroed all week long. Can I say that? I probably can't.
You're fine.
But the so I did the kind of the, I forget the exact name for it, but the 5 billionaires stuff, because I figured it's best to just do it all in one go, because it's gonna provide a lot of money. But like I'm
money
40,
is literally your level in this game.
Yeah, like I'm 40 hours into this game. It's a little bit too long, to be honest. Like there's a lot of just to explain very quickly, like there's a part in this game where you just have to go around the map, which is not that big, but there's no easy way to just warp to a place that you want to go to. Like there's like a taxi system that's kind of useless because the taxis are all very far from your home base. And you have to go to physically to like a business and buy it, and then like wait for timers to go down to then, get cash, like collect cash from these businesses that you bought, and then so that you can go purchase more businesses. It's kind of addictive in that time wasty mobile game way, but it's not. I'm glad I'm done with it now. I hope it's not something that comes back, basically. But yeah, still playing that, but no real update. Like I can't just keep saying like what crazy stuff just happened in my game. I will end on this. I have met Nugget, and that was kind of my goal playing this game.
Congratulations.
I bowled a turkey, and
have you put him to work?
Is he the guy
in
course. Diapers?
No,
or
he's
no,
chicken.
No, that's what is it? That I forget that guy's name, but the diaper fetish. No, Nugget is a chicken. You're supposed to bowl a turkey to get a delicious, crispy skin, juicy inside turkey. But it's
Japan.
It's Japan, and then like she's like, okay, the turkey's in the back, I'm gonna go get it, and then she drops it in front of you, the bowling attendant, and it's a chicken, and Kiryu's just like, well, it's a little bit more alive than I thought. Also, it's not a turkey, it's a chicken. And so, you don't have the heart to just kill it then and there. And so it becomes a manager in your
it just works for you
timer
now.
minigame. Yeah. It's very dumb, but this is the stuff that just kept popping up on my Twitter timeline back when the game came out.
That's how memeable this game is the fact that I know nothing about this game. I've never played it ever. Never even, I don't even own it. Nothing. I know nothing about this game. I've never touched it, but I know some of the dumb shit that's in this game just because of what I've seen on Twitter and stuff. So.
It's built for this.
Yeah.
So it's satisfying, to finally play the meme.
Mm-hmm. Live the memes.
Yeah. So I'm having fun, but I don't know. I guess I'm gonna power through the rest of the story now. I hope.
Yeah. It is very we talked about how this game lives and breathes. It's 1980s bubble economy culture. Money is literally how you level up in this game.
Yeah.
You literally spend money to level up. There's no
you meet some
system.
weird dude, some weird American. By the way, all the American characters in this game are not. It's not flattering for how Japanese people view Westerners. Like all these, all the characters in this game have kind of an uncanny valley aspect to them. But at least the Japanese characters, they kind of look almost. I don't know. They look better than whatever the monsters that that pass off as Americans.
They're clownish. Yeah.
I don't know.
I always took that as Kiryu probably hadn't seen a lot of Westerners, and it's almost like how his brain is processing what he's seeing.
Yeah, maybe.
But also, I think they also just sucked at making Western models think a lot of the Japanese actors are just scanned.
Yeah, so basically, like, early in the game, you meet someone who's like, you got to invest in yourself, literally. And so all the money that you make, like, to level up your stats, you have to pour money into your stats.
Yes. It's very stupid.
I gotta say, yeah, no, but it's good. It's like, this game has a theme, and it sticks to it, and I think that's commendable.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. But that's it. Yeah.
Fair enough. Greg?
Sure. So, I've been playing the Emio demo. Oh. That's not phonetically too silly.
The first demo.
Well, yeah, the second part has, it was sort of uploaded just as we began recording today. So I managed to get a little bit of that in, but yeah, mostly just the first part. So because they have gone with this sort of serialized, or I think they said episodic demo, kind of the first section of the game, but split up into 3 parts, kind of. And I did actually have to update it, to be able to play. It wasn't just a time unlock thing. It was, because I'd obviously downloaded the demo, I played the first part, and then it's like, as I was setting up here to record, I thought, it's past the hour, it's time now, it should be available. So I loaded up my save, and so let's try and go to chapter 2, and it wouldn't do it, even though it was after time. But then I backed out, updated the app, and then it would. So I got a little bit surprised by that. I thought it would just be a time unlock thing without actually having to do an update, but there it is. But yeah, I mean, this is my first time actually playing one of these Famicom Detective Club kind of games, because the remakes of the couple from the Disk System days, I've mentioned before, the pricing scenario did not do it that many favors over here in particular, because of the way they did it in America, where it's like, you could buy one, and then if you like it, you might want to play the other one, you'll get a discount on the other one and stuff, and splitting them up like that. Not how they did it here. You had to buy the bundle, basically. Or you could buy the bundle with a voucher, so that's one way you'd get a little money off. But basically you had to buy the 2 together. And there's no option of sort of getting the Japanese version cheap with all the exchange rate stuff that's gone on, especially since those came out, because it's not a global sort of file the way that many games are. The Japanese version is only available in Japanese. That's it. So like, say for instance, if you wanted to buy the physical copy from Japan, it's only got the Japanese language on it. For whatever reason, Emio quite clearly states on the eShop page that it's multi-language. So no idea what went into those decisions, before and now, but that's the way it is. So I guess, if you wanted to import the fancy edition with your paper bag or whatever from Japan this time, it would actually play in English. But going through the demo, it's very much, what I would have expected if I had played one of the remakes. It really doesn't seem like there's been any sort of decision to say, okay, well, this is an original one now, so we're going to deviate from that kind of very traditional, naturally, could be remaking games from, the mid-80s on Famicom Disk System. This, and again, I mean, this is probably better analysed by someone who's played more visual novels and adventure games than I have, but it's quite clear even to me, like, this is like very traditional, this is not so different from like playing the one, in, Retro Game Challenge 2, with Arino, investigating what's going on. So like, you work it through the text options, kind of, having a kind of, figure out which one you need to kind of ask or prompt again to kind of advance the text, and whatnot. But, that's pretty much all there is to it at this stage. Just a glimpse in the second part where it's a little bit more based on using like the kind of, magnifying glass icon to you identify something in the environment, which then advances it. You know, other M fans will remember this, because those analogous sequences were quite bafflingly inserted into that game, where you basically just had to find a point on the screen, which was of interest, and then it would advance it. But yeah, much more natural here, it must be said. But I don't know how, sort of enjoyable it will necessarily be, if they get too obscure or anything like that. But it's all, as you'd imagine, in these early stages, very straightforward stuff. You're just kind of getting introduced to the basic premise about this murder that's taken place, and how it may or may not tie into a serial murder case from several years earlier, and an urban legend, and all this stuff. So yeah, it's nice just to be able to sort of give any of these Famicom Detective Club remake kind of game, because I'm sure the graphics are, and the style and everything is pretty much exactly the same. Maybe it's a little bit enhanced for this original one, but again, it really does seem like it's trying to keep to almost the notion of, what if they'd done another one than the others they did back in those days. And it's visually, I think, kind of works with the style, and, the music is consistent with the bits that we've heard from the remakes. We've had people request for ending music and stuff. So I guess what's going to be interesting with that is how well it messes with what seemingly, from what we've heard, is supposed to be, more kind of unpleasant themes and goings on that are sort of promised from the rating descriptors and things like that. I mean, I've not played those other games, so I don't know. I assume there's, a fair amount of criminality going on and whatnot, but seemingly this is going to sort of go more unpleasant places, and you wonder whether, kind of the kind of chilled out kind of feel to, everything that I'm getting so far, and that I kind of assume was part of those other games, whether, that actually evolves, or whether it'll get like a little bit dissonant with the unpleasantness or whatnot. But, to this point, you've just got like the initial murder is like a little bit kind of, nasty. And then, some of not a great deal of the promised profanity. We just really kind of, one of the sort of main things that happens in the first chapter is you are a sort of junior with the private detective kind of agency, and you are trying to kind of get information out of the actual police people that are handling the case, and you kind of end up stuck in a room. You weren't supposed to be talking to one of their junior detectives, like meant to be a more senior one, but you're kind of stuck with him, and basically it's just very clear it wants you to understand that this man is a tosser. Basically, that is the point of this scene, is that, that he's a bit of a douche. Maybe he's not a total douche. Maybe he is. I guess maybe there'll be character development that reveals there's a little bit more to him. But yeah, that was kind of the abiding thing about that first part of the demo, is just like, all right, this guy's a bit of a chancer, but thinks he's funnier and cleverer than he actually is, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's the kind of, I guess you need the kind of characterization and all that to hold it, because that's the real part of it, I guess, especially again for people who've got a lot more experience with these kinds of games than I have, is, the bar for this kind of experience has been raised considerably, in recent years, in particular, with the great, kind of appreciation for the genre, and, more and more developers coming forward with it. So, whereas those remakes, obviously there's a certain amount of, it's nice they've come back, they've acknowledged them, localized them for the first time, and, I guess a certain amount of understanding of just like, well, basically these are games from the 80s, so there's going to be, that's kind of a limiting factor on how they go from a design point of view and from a writing point of view to some extent. You can't, even though this is like trying to be, almost like a game that could have, without the graphical kind of overlay have been, in existence in the end of the 80s or the early 90s. It's a new game. People are going to judge it differently, I think, and the question is, can you offer something of the depth and the quality of writing that, other visual novels and adventure games offer today? I mean, because that is the standard that it will be judged by. And that is there. So again, I'm not well positioned to kind of answer that. But so a certain amount of kind of encouraging signs early on. I feel like it was kind of absorbing enough, while it's, obviously there's a certain amount of repetition and a certain amount of that good old-fashioned ghostwritery bit at the end where it's like, have you been paying attention? Let us just check that you've been able to respond to one of the basic facts about the story as it's been explained to you so far. So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by the whole thing, to be honest. Other than just the critical factor of Sakamoto's seniority being how this happened, and just the way they've marketed it, the way they're splitting this demo up. Like, it just seems like they're trying a few things. I assume they have every expectation that it will not sell at all, and they're like, let's just try some stuff to see what it does, because we may as well, because it can't really do any harm, I guess. But yeah, just intrigued to see how it all plays out. But I'm not. I struggle a little bit these days to play kind of these text-heavy games the way that I used to, which generally tended to be like before bed, because that's just the best time I've got to concentrate on it properly, and it kind of helps settle you down and help you sort of drift off. These days, I tend to find the problem is I just sort of drift off a bit too quickly and don't actually get through very much, and then promptly fall asleep for 20 or 30 minutes and then sleep like shit for the rest of the night. So that's it just doesn't work the way it used to in that regard. So it doesn't have this nice little slot for me to kind of make my way through these experiences. But that's me. We'll see anyway.
You just described me in the final round just yesterday, so thanks for that. Imagine having your sleep disrupted by the final fucking round. Oh, god damn it. Anything else?
No, that's pretty much it for me.
All right, John, take us home.
Yeah, so taking us back to 2000, a new century, if you will. Turn of the millennium. There was a game release called Diablo II. I have come back around after 3 years to play Diablo II Resurrected. So this came out.
So this is your first time ever playing it?
Yeah. I got it way back in 2021. Just really, it was one of those games where, I'm
shocking.
I played Diablo, right? But I just really wasn't feeling this for whatever reason. So I've been playing Diablo 4 quite a bit lately. And I was like, hey, I'm in the Diablo mood. And so I was like, let's go back to Diablo 2 Resurrected. I think at the time when I played it, I just wasn't really in the mood for something this game's a little bit stiff, let's just say. Especially when compared to like Diablo 3 and Diablo 4.
Which were the two that were kind of developed with porting to console in mind.
Yeah.
Whereas like Diablo 1 and 2, like sure, there was Diablo 1 on PlayStation, but it was not really meant for that originally. And I don't think Diablo 2 ever got a console port.
No. I don't think so. But yeah, this one actually has my history with this game is that I actually did have a pirated version of this game back in like the mid 2000s, but I never had a PC that could play it properly, so that's why I never played it. I remember I did have the Lord of Destruction version, which was the expansion to this. So they of course re-released that with the expansion included, but I never had a chance to play it. So it's interesting for me, and actually kind of an interesting retro thing for me, because I know the story and the characters and all of the kind of the big bads and stuff from Diablo 3 and Diablo 4. More so Diablo 3. Diablo 3 is more relevant to this than Diablo 4 is. But it's just interesting seeing kind of the origins of, or almost like what these characters were doing in their previous lives, if that makes any sense. It's like seeing like the other side of the story or what happened previously is interesting, because I really have no context of the first two Diablo games. I've never played them. beyond this stuff like, references to Deckard Cain and the Wanderer and that kinds of stuff that kind of make their way more into Diablo 3 than Diablo 4. So this one is interesting. I think one of the things too one of the mistakes I made when I first picked this game up, the Resurrected version, is I rolled a Paladin, which is really not, I think, the greatest class to start off with, especially if you're trying to get to grips with the game's systems. Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, and also, like, most of his powers are, like, auras, right, that affect, like, you have to be playing multiplayer, really, to make the most out of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I did instead, and really what I do now, I did this in Diablo 3, they didn't have necromancers in the game until the expansion, Rise of the Necromancer. So I didn't have, having no previous experience with this game series, I had never played Necromancer, but Necromancer was the first class that I rolled in Diablo 4 because I really liked Necromancer in Diablo 3. And really, I think Necromancers, I mean, Guillaume, you have a little bit of the earlier Z, but it feels like Necromancers are always historically, they're always a good class in Diablo. It just seems that way.
Yeah, that's the thing. I played the first game, which didn't have the Necromancer, and I played the vanilla Diablo 2, because my PC could run it, although barely.
Yeah.
But I played it back in the day, and I never got around to playing the expansion, actually.
Yeah.
And I always make this mistake. Like, I think, like, I'm going to play this game more than once, and I'm going to start with, like, the simplest character that I can. So I played through the game with a Barbarian. Mm-hmm. And it's after a while it gets pretty boring.
Yeah.
Because, like, he's pretty limited. He's only got the melee attacks, basically, for the most part. And it's like the most uncomplicated character that you can be playing, which translates to, like at least like it was true 20 years ago, but like the Diablo haters would reduce it to like, it's just a clicking game. You just click, which, yeah, definitely. You clicked a lot in Diablo, and it was probably more true for something like the Barbarian than maybe other classes where maybe you had to use more strategy or more like diverse powers and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, really, how much more diverse would Diablo get? That's what makes me laugh about that. I mean, you only have like you only have like 6 attacks.
I know we are reticent to talk about some of the people who were at Blizzard a very long time for reasons we don't really need to go into. Mm-hmm. But, John, I'm going to propose a reason why the Necromancer might always be a good class. And that reason is the nerds who worked on all the Diablo games would think Necromancers are fucking sick.
Yeah.
And would, as a consequence, overbuff those characters because they're fucking sick.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it, too, is just you can always get these kind of, summoner builds, right? Where you have a whole bunch of, skeletal mages or skeletons or golems or something that attack. So really, I mean, especially in Diablo 4, I mean, I have a maxed out Necromancer, not that he has like the best equipment because that just requires an incredible amount of grinding. But once you get Necromancers to max level in Diablo 4, I mean, you pretty much just walk around and that game plays itself. Like, really, because you just walk around and your mob of minions, they go and attack something off screen that you don't even know is there yet. And they just kill it. And so you just walk through and just kill everything. And so that's, I think, why I'm enjoying, as I learn Diablo 2, I'm enjoying it more because I don't really have to master anything with my Necromancer. Although I will say the Necromancer in Diablo 2 is unlike the Necromancer in 3 and 4 because it is more of a melee class. Like, you actually have to kind of go up and hit stuff. Whereas in 3 and 4, your whole goal is to just get as many minions as you can and just pretty much sit back and do nothing aside from like throw down debuffs and then have your minions attack things. So I feel like the kind of flavor of the class seems to have changed between 2 to 3 and 4. It's become more minion based, and you can of course have different builds that are kind of more melee focused in 3 and 4. But at least this one, I'm going with the same kind of minion build that I've done in the other games, and it kind of relies more on you become less in this one. You're more of a warrior with minions, whereas in the other one, it's almost like you're more of a spellcaster with minions. Where your entire goal is to make it so that you don't get touched. And if you do, you got problems because you really don't have the greatest melee capabilities. Whereas in Diablo 2, it feels like it's kind of 50-50. Where, your minions do some work, but you also have to go over to things, especially when you're fighting bosses. Your minions do not do enough damage. At least they don't right now for me. Probably around level 20-ish, maybe 17, something like that. But yeah, and in terms of the systems you interact with, you still have a skill tree. And like some of the convenience stuff that they've added, I guess, just very simple things like, I guess in the original game, it didn't notify you when you had skill points to spend. There's just very simple like stuff like that. And one thing they have here is they have a shared stash. So if you make multiple characters, you have a combined, loot stash. Whereas in the first game, if you had two characters that you wanted to share loot between, you had to make a third character. And then you had mule characters and stuff like that. So you don't have to do stuff like that in this one. So they have modernized it a little bit. But everything else they've kept, apparently everything else is very, very old school. And they've just layered a new coat of paint on it, outside of a few things like that. This game does have an interesting history though, because I guess when they were remastering it, that they were trying to find the source code. And apparently after this game had shipped, the source code, the storage that it was on became corrupted, so there is no Diablo 2 pristine source code. So they had to piece together, and I love stuff like this where they had to find, this is also funny now in these days where just code security and internet security is such a huge deal. But, and I've heard this from other developers too, when they had this same kind of problem, is the first thing they do is they go to the employees that previously worked there and they said, hey, would you happen to have any Diablo 2, source code on floppy anywhere? And sure enough, you always have these developers who on an old PC somewhere or an old hard drive, they have like the entire source code tree from some part of the source code backed up. And it's just been sitting there for 20 years and they didn't even realize it was there. So they kind of had to do some forensics like that where they were able to pull it off of developers' personal machines, where they had downloaded some of the source code, but they couldn't get all of it. But they could piece a lot of it together, and then the rest of it, since it's a remaster, they could fill some of it in with like the original artists and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting. I really like stuff like that. And also, this is, I believe, the last game that Vicarious Visions did as an independent developer. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So they were brought in to help with this remaster, and apparently they did such a good job that they just brought them into the Blizzard corporate structure. And they kind of became, and the way that it's phrased, at least in the Wikipedia article, is they say that they learned kind of so much about probably the Diablo source code and just like Diablo in general, that they just pretty much brought them in and threw them on the Diablo team. And they helped out with, not only Diablo 2 Resurrected, but also Diablo 4 as well. So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. So Vicarious Visions played a big role in this one. So, but I'm enjoying it. I mean, it's certainly more fun, as a necromancer where things die and I don't have to sit there and really, learn my character inside and out or hack down every single thing I need to fight. The necromancer probably isn't the greatest in boss fights. I learned that I just fought the first boss in this is Andariel. But it's funny though, because you play these, I mean, like after playing Diablo 3 and 4, you get used to the boss fights sort of being large and kind of impactful and almost on different stages. Like, you always walk into this, it's kind of very typical modern game where big boss fights happen almost on a stage. Like you walk out onto a huge expansive cliff or something like that. But everything in Diablo 2 is just on the same grid. So if you've played any of the early Baldur's Gate games, that's effectively what it looks like. And so it's you're expecting a big boss fight, and the boss walks out. It's just in the same kind of environment that everything else is, or the same scale, I guess you could say. But the boss is just a bigger monster than everybody, but you still sit there and like hack it down with your little weapon sort of thing. It's pretty funny. Like it's supposed to be a big boss
just a
fight.
Dude.
Yeah, it's just a bigger dude. So when I did fight Andariel, you have to go down into these catacombs to fight her. And I didn't even kind of realize it was a boss fight. Because I was just like, oh, well, here's a bigger monster. And I'm like, oh, crap, that's Andariel. And then, Andariel, I think it was actually funny because when I killed Andariel, there was one monster left over and I had no health, and that monster killed me. So I killed Andariel and then immediately died. And then I went back to the camp. And I'm like, wait a minute, what just happened? What's going on? And of course, once you kill that boss, a whole bunch of stuff changes. A whole bunch of people get like the quest markers above their heads because you've just progressed the story. So it's kind of chaotic. But no, it's cool. So, definitely going to keep going through the story. I don't know how hardcore I'll get with any other classes or stuff like that, but I'm enjoying it. I mean, it's a good nostalgia trip. And as I'm playing through Diablo 4, which is just, seasons, it's on the seasonal content with, another expansion coming up. It's interesting just kind of seeing this sort of, other part of the story. So, yeah, it's
and
cool.
It's not a live game or, that can be kind of refreshing these days.
Yeah, exactly. So it just feels like it's very low stakes, and they've done a good job. They've replaced all of the cutscenes with brand new modern cutscenes, so that's pretty cool. At least for me, who's not even familiar with the story. So yeah, they did a pretty good job on it, where they changed just enough. The kind of stuff that was really annoying, they changed that, but they really didn't touch anything else. So as someone who's new to it, I feel like I'm kind of getting something similar to the original experience.
Yeah, I almost was tempted at some point to check it out, and it was on sale a bunch of times, and I almost pulled the trigger, but then I checked, wait, is this game split screen multiplayer? Because Diablo 3 is, Diablo 4 is.
Yeah.
Diablo 2 is not. So I was like, oh, okay, that's a bullet dodged, because I didn't want to play this by myself. I wanted to play it with Karen. But to do that, we would have needed to have 2 Switches and play both the Switch version or like both playing the Xbox version.
Yeah.
Which is not going to happen because we only have the one and we're not in the market for another.
Yeah.
It's not cross-platform, it's not split screen, but it is you can transfer your character to a different platform. So if you were playing on Switch, you could then transfer your character to the PC and then continue playing there.
Yeah, I guess apparently if you have an old PC save, you can use it on Diablo 2 Resurrected.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go dig up my 200 megahertz Pantheon 1.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you have
boot up Windows 98 SE.
Yeah, I guess if you have that save file, whatever save file they have there, I guess you can use it with Resurrected. So, but it's cool though. I'm gonna keep going through it. I mean, it's just some of the only thing I don't like about it, I would say, is how every time you drop into the game, the world is different. So I didn't realize at first how crucial it is to uncover the waypoints, because I mean, even the first camp that you start in, when you boot the game up, the exit is to the east, and then if you exit out of the game and come back the next day, you boot the game up and the exit's to the south, and everything changes. The layout all changes for the whole world. So that's kind of annoying, but you do get around it. You do get around it by opening up all the different waypoints. It's just like, it wasn't obvious to me at first. And so the first couple of times, you start off in this like kind of rogue camp, and you have to go through that story to kill Andariel because she's taken over this monastery that the rogues used to be in and stuff. So, but every time the exit was to the south. And then, after playing the game 3 or 4 times, one time I booted up and I'm like, where's the exit? What's going on here? Is this game broken? And it's like, no, it just changed. It just procedurally regenerated. And now the exit is to the east, and the layout of stuff is sort of similar, but also different. Like, so it's almost like it kind of flips things. So previously, if you had to go to the south to get out of the first camp and then go to like the southwest, it's like you have to go east and then you have to go northwest. It's just, yeah, it's kind of weird. And, you know.
That sounds very dumb. And also, I don't remember that, but maybe I just don't remember because I don't remember. I do remember that like the procedural generation thing was a big deal because not a whole lot of games were doing it back then, but I would have thought it would be, well, yeah, it procedurally generates the world once, like, you know, as you're going through it, but then it doesn't change on you.
Yeah.
Like that part doesn't make sense.
Yeah, this changes. So things are in the same spots, but how you get to those spots changes every time you boot the game up. So, yeah. But, yeah, it's cool. I like it.
Cool. All right, anything else?
No, that's it.
Cool. All right, well, then we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to do a little bit of listener mail, so please stay tuned. We return to you, dear listener, and we come back to you with a new mission. That mission is emails. So your mission is first. We want you to send us emails. Now, previous weeks I had said I've given you big open-ended opportunity, and the end result was actually markedly less nightmarish than we expected, which is good. You're showing maturity. You're showing growth, personal growth, emotional growth, and I appreciate that. But now is the time for you to show a new type of initiative. And that initiative is send us an email. What should be in that email? We want your deeply considered questions. Things that, your potent ponderings, as it were, about Nintendo and the larger ecosystem in which it operates. You could send those to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Why did I speed up to say it the second time? Because we're on a time limit. And if you send your question, we will then, the second part of this operation, read it, consider it ourselves, because these are carefully considered. And if time allows, answer it. Much like we are going to do tonight. And I would like, Guillaume, since you didn't have new business, do you want to read the first email?
Sure. MASB writes, "Greetings, RFN curators. With everyone following the direct format, I can only assume we'll have a Guggenheim Direct in our future now that Nintendo's museum in Kyoto has been shown. 3 activities were revealed. 5 were not. What would you like some of the remaining activities to be? My idea? You'll be ushered into a recreation of Hiroshi Yamauchi's office circa the late 1980s. The idea of the exhibit is to bring back the heady days where Miyamoto, Yokoi, and others had to play their games in front of the big boss. The visitor gets to play a random selection of the many cancelled Nintendo games that have gotten the axe over the years. If you play it well, the animatronic Yamauchi, or an actor, whichever is cheaper, Yamauchi would approve of this, will give you his grudging approval. Play badly, and nothing will save you from the furious look behind his brown-tinted glasses. Maybe the reward would be a 500 yen discount for the museum gift shop.
Absolutely not.
I'd say the penalty for failure would be to get kicked out of the premises, but that might reduce revenue coming from the cafe. What would be your quote-unquote dream exhibit/activity for the Nintendo Museum? Yours in being tricked into gathering relics for top men. MASB.
So the other items were actually, there's a website for the museum, museum.nintendo.com. It actually does reveal what the other activities are, but for the sake of this email, we will instead cast our own 5 activities. They're not particular, the ones I will word it this way. The ones they showed were picked because they were the most interesting. By a long shot. Like, have you ever wanted to play Game & Watch using your shadow as the controller?
Well, yeah, but...
Well, get on a fucking plane, Guillaume. It's time to go to Kyoto. Yeah, it's some of these activities are literally just play Nintendo classics. Like it's not exactly the most inspired for some of these. So like the ones we do,
I'd say that's worth the plane ticket to Japan.
To use the virtual console that's already baked into your Switch.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna play the games on the plane to Japan, and then when you get there, you're gonna play them in the Kyoto Museum. It's synchronicity. And then you get to play them on the big controller. So yeah, I guess we should step back a little bit. People who didn't see this 12-minute direct or whatever. Nintendo had announced, I think they announced it back in 2022. I can't remember exactly. That they were converting the original factory for the Nintendo Corporation, which was the Hanafuda card manufacturing. They were converting that space into a museum that sort of showed off the company's history. And companies having museums is a fairly common thing. Like, you know, most big companies, most big international companies have some kind of museum in or around their headquarters, you know, for tourists to get a chance to look at them, and you know they could show off some of the old stuff they made back in the day and whatever. Nintendo doesn't have anything like that. And in fact, when I was in Japan in 2016, there really wasn't anything Nintendo branded that you could do. I mean, at all. I think there was one Nintendo store, because the stores are still Pokemon centers. Since then, some Pokemon centers have become Nintendo World stores. But there really wasn't any stores. You could go to the old Nintendo playing card company gate and see the plaque. But that wasn't like a tourist thing. That was just a thing that people did. The theme parks hadn't been announced yet. They certainly hadn't been built yet. And this thing didn't exist. And so Nintendo has, I guess, tourist attractions on the brain. You know, they built the theme park at Universal Studios in Osaka. And they've now built this museum / like small activity center / kind of like mini theme park in Kyoto, because you know if you're gonna do what like building a second thing, you build them far apart, right? Like Tokyo and Kyoto. Oh no, I was talking Kyoto. Oh no, they're like half an hour apart. Never mind. But yeah, like this gives them a physical touch point, and the whole direct was like Miyamoto walking around showing things he's proud of. Like, look at this collection of art from various video games from all over the world, and it was just boxes on a shelf behind glass. And you could play some of those games, and you could play some of those games on big controllers.
Yeah, the boxes behind a glass thing is particularly unimpressive to me. Like, it's like, okay, you're showing me a slightly beat up Wii Fit board box, and I have the exact same slightly beat up Wii Fit board box here. Like, I still own it. I don't need to see it. I don't need to fly to Japan to see that.
It feels very much like they leaned very hard in the activity center rather than museum direction in this case. This isn't super uncommon for these kinds of like corporate museums, or even like the Ghibli facility, which is very similar to this. It's a large building that you buy a ticket admission to, and you kind of walk around and just have an experience. There's not really like, there's some concept art and stuff on display, but it's really more about vibes. It's like you walk into this room and it's designed to look like a room from one of the movies. And then, like, on the wall, there's some sketches from when the movie was being made. And some, like, figurines that some of the art team made. That's it. It's not, you learn nothing. There is a fat gift shop at the end that you can go to, though. Please be sure to stop by there on your way out the door. This has got kind of similar vibes. Like, it is a museum in the most abstract sense of the word.
Yeah, it feels like this could have been a Digital Eclipse release. And in fact, probably a Digital Eclipse release would have been more complete and informative.
Yeah, it's much more about selling these experiences, like the various activities. Because when you go there and you buy your ticket, you get a card that has 10 coins on it. You may not buy more coins. You must buy another ticket to the museum, and you use those coins to do these activities. And so the activities are like, as I said, play Nintendo Classics, or Game & Watch SP, play Game & Watch using your own shadow, end of description. Or the Love Tester SP, of course, based on Nintendo's Love Tester. 2 people join hands and work together on tests to measure their love level. There's a giant Ultra Hand thing where you grab balls rolling down the lane and drop them into pipes. Shiguriden, which is a type of card game that will make no sense to foreign players who are there. There's a shooting gallery using zappers and super scopes. A big controller, which we'll get to. It's exactly what it sounds like.
Oh, and yeah. The funniest was that they didn't really feature it so much. It was just in the background while Miyamoto was talking. But they had the giant Wii remote.
They did.
And it was like, you could see that they were doing a thing. I honestly don't remember specifically what game this would have been from, but it was like where you're flying something, right? So, and then you kind of, tilting the Wii remote, pointer to control the plane or aircraft, whatever it was.
How?
And so they had 2 people kind of, trying to weigh the back of the Wii remote, the giant Wii remote down to point it up.
Yeah, this looks like a Wii Sports Resort.
Right, okay. Right. Was that it? I mean, I had Wii Sports Resort, but it just, for some reason, I was looking at that and thinking, you couldn't see it that well. Maybe if you see it.
Well, your brain was also resetting from seeing 2 people try to control a Wii remote.
Yeah, I mean, definitely that if I did ever play this, it's...
Well, next to that, like, they've got a bunch of people playing on the giant Wii Fit board, I suppose, because they're playing like the marble game of Wii Fit.
Right.
I like that the N64 is one of the controllers that they've made giant versions of. Like, who's going to press the Z button?
Yeah, that's it. With the GameCube, I think they've got a giant controller as like decorative, but I don't think they've got a functional one.
My theory here is the giant shouldered spring buttons would be so powerful they might kill a child, so they just couldn't do a GameCube. Sorry, it's not possible.
My theory would be that the A button would simply be so large that it would have its own orbit, and that so we might risk just throwing off all ecology on the planet due to everything just starts revolving around that bloody big A button.
On the flip side, though, they would have a D-pad that's actually an acceptable size.
Size, yeah, but the feel was never that great. That's always I never understood about that. It looked just like the GBA one, but it didn't feel as good as it. What was that about? I don't know. I don't know how much of that was psychological or physical or what, placement, because you're reaching down with your thumb more because It was like, I don't know, but it was always a bit vexing.
They're all controllers from their various consoles. What I'm not seeing is a Game Boy. I really wish that one of these. Yeah, I hope that they have giant Game Boys over there. That would be ironic, I guess.
The game man.
The giant Game Boy Micro. Gotta be.
That's perfect.
The other activity was Ultra Machine SP, which Ultra Machine is that pitching machine.
I'm watching that right now. I haven't seen all this direct, so I'm watching that right now.
That's the most interesting one because you're in these various rooms that are styled after rooms from the late 70s when the Ultra Machine came out, and certain items in the room are interactive. So if you hit them with the ball, some mechanical thing happens.
Well, it's also
got like this. They got the 3 Pikmin vases that I mentioned as being purchasable from the Nintendo store over here are just mixed in with the 70s decor. It's a little strange.
It's fine.
Yeah, to me, like that setup is a little bit sad. I don't know. Like it seems to echo like one of those pictures, like see what they took from us or something. The weirdos who are nostalgic for their childhoods, basically, and think that kids today don't have it as good. Which is ridiculous.
Like, the different rooms they have are like a living room and stuff. Like I thought that was actually kind of neat.
Yeah.
I like that their stuff moves and interacts if you hit it with the ball. Like that's fun.
I guess, but it's like I don't know, kind of a third-rate theme park kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like I'm not blown away by this.
All right, Guillaume. All right. I get it. You don't like fun. Okay, but what if what if I give you something else? Something else that really makes this stand out. What if I told you that there's a cafe? And the cafe actually looks really nice. Part of it looks like the 70s, and part of it looks like they bought every piece of wood paneling that's ever been created to make a shrine to the Wind Waker. But in this cafe, Hatena Burger, you can make your own burger. You might say, why would I want to make my own burger? I'm at a restaurant. Well, what you do is you custom order it with up to 270,000 combinations of ingredients.
Wow.
High chairs are available if you speak to the staff. This is really the museum. This is it. This is where we're at.
I know where to get a burger if I go to Japan, which I'm planning to at some point.
Well, you have to get a ticket because the cafe is located inside Nintendo Museum, is only open to ticket holders.
So some theme parks let you build your own lightsaber. Nintendo lets you build a burger?
Build your own burger. I don't understand the tie to Nintendo here. The cafe looks nice. That's it. I don't know why the burger is why they were like, you could build your own burger. I'm like, what the fuck? They spent not a ton of time on it, but they spent more time than I would have expected in this little mini direct on the burgers. And yeah, there are some exhibits that are focused on history, but it seems like it's not really the focus.
Yeah.
The shop seems to be more the focus than the history.
One thing, this doesn't really answer MASB's question. It's more about, kind of, one of the attractions they did show, but I would have preferred, I can understand why they didn't, but they mentioned it in the preamble, the notion of there was this fad in Japan, apparently, for bowling, which then passed. And Nintendo was able to capitalize on this by converting bowling alleys into shooting galleries. And this was sort of the first, version of, Duck Hunt or whatever, right?
Right.
Although there was also, a little, toy thing as well that they came up with, for people, to use at home. But, this was it's just, then of course they showed this new shooting gallery attraction thing. So it's like you've got zappers and super scopes and everybody shooting Mario things with paint. I just would have preferred it if that was actually more themed after, those rooms are made to look like they're in the 70s, actually have it look like a bowling alley that's been converted and actually have it be, Duck Hunt themed or whatever. But I get it, because then it's more the theme of it, shooting animals and all that. They don't want to do so. No, it's paint and it's zappers and it's super scope and all. But if it were actually being more historical, that would be, more accurate. But again, they're trying to make it more fun and more kind of bright and colourful for people, for kids to enjoy it and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. It is very funny to me that they made Disney Quest. So that if you're not familiar, in the Eisner days, which meant this good idea incoming, a Michael Eisner idea. They wanted to put Disney facilities. This is a huge ego thing, where you could engage with their style of experiences, but in many cities throughout the country. And the idea is almost identical to this. There's attractions. There's some big activities that you wouldn't be able to do in an arcade, but have kind of an arcade payment system for them. There's some arts and crafts stuff. So in the case of this thing, you can make your own Hanafuda cards. They have paint stencils for it. And there's a restaurant. It's the exact same format with the exact same idea of wrap it around your properties. But they put them 90 miles from the fucking theme park. It'd be like if they built one of these in Orlando. Oh, wait, Disney did that. It's fucking stupid. The whole project was a huge colossal money waste, but because this has kind of the museum veneer on it, it'll probably be fine. But what activities could we, like, these are going to break. They just are. Like, some of them are like, you're going to put Famicom controllers in the hands of children. Good luck. So we've been brought in to, let's say, give this thing its first, what's the best, or its first refresh. You know, museums get refreshed periodically to keep people coming in. Let's say we're, 16 months past the GO, and they've brought us in for proposals on the first refresh. We got to come up with some games to fill, or some activities to get people to give us their coins so they get out of the museum faster, because traffic's down, but we're still overcrowded because people don't know what to spend their coins on. It takes them too long. So the idea is that, by giving you a fixed number of coins, you spend your coins and you get the fuck out so things don't get too crowded. Well, now people are backed up because they're trying to figure out how to use their coins. So how do we do it? What ideas do we have that fit into the theme of Nintendo history?
Yeah, I mean, normally, you would look to me and I would say something like Love Hotel, or Steve Hewitt, or James Jones Is My Daddy, something like that. But I actually do have a serious one, and I think it would pull a coin out of at least some people. Is when you go into the museum.
A magician?
No, when you go into the museum, you are given a kind of a pair of like VR glasses or something like that, and you are allowed to either import your Mii from your Nintendo account, or you can make you can pay a coin to make your Mii there. And then as you walk through the museum, you see everybody in their Mii form. So it overlays the Mii on each person, and you see them as their Mii form, and as they're talking to you, it's them as their Mii talking.
I think for safety reasons, you probably couldn't do it everywhere, but if you had like a Mii Plaza...
that's a good call. Yeah.
You know what I'm imagining now? So it's like, I'm there, I've got the goggles on, I've got the overlay on, and then I look across the room and I realise that BJ... It's the guy that was BJ all those years ago. You bastard. And then that's basically a recreation of the stupid Peter Griffin versus the chicken guy fight.
Fighting your way through the Hatina burger.
It elapses for like several days at this point. That's all because you get to recognise me criminals through the power of AR goggles. I like this.
They'd have to be really careful.
This me thing, I feel like you could take it further, but my mind just went into kind of like semi-horror direction. So basically, like you bring your Wii remote that has your Mii on it. Remember that? You can just bring. So this is a premium experience. You don't have like goggles and overlays or any of that shit. You get into this room and like a bunch of people, scientist-looking people, just look down on you, and like they like some machine starts to close in on you and then encases you into some sort of plasticky thing that turns you into your Mii.
This is my Mii. It was made for me.
Yeah,
is that where we're at right now? Great.
Yeah, basically, yes. I was thinking more like Superman 3, like the lady being turned into a robot.
Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking being turned into Galvatron, but yours is probably closer. It's not an upgrade, is it? It's horrible.
No.
What if
it's being done against your will? You weren't expecting this.
No.
And now you have to get through life looking like that.
Yes, with very limited amount of ability to express yourself.
I don't know. I thought Mitoma was very expressive. What if 1 out of 1,000 people gets turned into Horus instead? Oh no, it's like the Sword in the Stone at Disneyland. One kid pulls it out and they're in charge. Well, one person becomes Horus.
Well,
the Horus thing will just happen if the Nintendo Museum gets the Horus virus. Basically, like something in their system, like no one put that in there. We don't know where it came from, but some people come out of the museum being Horus.
Yeah,
I just want there to be a glass case right in the middle of the lobby with the Horus mask in it, and nobody knows how it got there.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about reacting to BJ, but I mean, if you see Horus, if you saw someone with the Horus, but that would probably be Donald Sutherland at the end of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, wouldn't it? You just did. That's not. That is a full-on freak out at that point.
Just screams. Somebody saw Horus. Should probably get down there and clean up. They've definitely wet themselves. I think from an activity standpoint, so the make your own burger thing, I actually think I know where that comes from, because I want to say it was, what is it? It's not Sanrio, I don't think. Maybe it is Sanrio. There's a very similar kind of, I think maybe it is. Very similar kind of thing for Sanrio. I'm going to guess it is. Where it's like company museum / activity center. And they do like a cookie baking thing and it's co-branded with a Japanese cookie company. And you can like draw your design on it. You don't actually make the cookies. You get cookies pre-made and then you draw on them with edible paint, essentially. I think that was where it was like, oh, it's interactive when you have your food. But that meant that they could charge like 1,500 yen for a fucking cookie. It's like, yeah, okay, the whole thing's is a work. I get it. But what if instead of like, hey, you can make your burger and you can put your burger in with all kinds of customizations and we'll spit out your burger. You're you of a kind burger. I just came up with that term. I'm a marketing genius.
You of a kind. Wow.
Yeah. See? You can hear a marketing person saying it, can't you?
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. In your corporate life, John, you can hear, there's a marketer in your head right now you are seeing who could say that line.
There is some company which is redesigning a brand.
Somebody just heard that and they're writing it down.
They're writing it down right now.
Yeah. But what if I wanted to have the authentic experience here of being in a environment where I get to eat like a Nintendo character? Well, we've got Hal. Kirby's out of the question because that's Hal. There's none Hal to be seen here.
Okay.
Well, that leaves us with famed eaters Wario and Yoshi. And so I think what the food activity should be. So yeah, obviously you pay for food when you go to get food at the restaurant. But what if there was a food activity you could exchange for coins? And it's just eating as many pieces of garlic as you can manage in 30 seconds. I think this is you get to wear a Wario hat while you do it and a nose, the nose straps into place. And every time you eat one, it's using 3D modeling of your face, specifically from a Joy-Con, to tell when you have consumed a piece of garlic. And every time you do it, you hear Wario cheer you on as you do it, just like you're playing a WarioWare game.
Yeah, I guess like some people might think like, well, like you get garlic, like that's not a very satisfying meal, but I think maybe like they could give you more if you can just accurately shove a finger up your own nose.
Sure.
So without missing.
Well, sometimes Wario has a hot dog float in front of his mouth and he has to eat it without moving. Like,
right.
There's like, what if the food was the activity? Not like, oh, I'm going to order burger number 100,256.
Well, the burger thing could be made more interesting if it was basically you don't really directly choose them. You're actually playing like that Extra Lives minigame in Super Mario 3 with the images that are 3-part images that flip left and right. I don't know how to say this, but basically like you have to stop the pictures on like the bottom bun, the patty, the top bun. But there's a very good chance that you're going to end up eating something that's just like, okay, like the bottom is a fucking leaf. On top of it is a part of a mushroom and it's topped by something that I guess is the top of a star. And then like, okay, that's your burger. Better luck next time.
Why is my burger glowing? Well, you did pick bioluminescence. That was option 39. What I think so like they have the giant NES controller and the giant N64 controller and the giant Wii remote. What if they had extra small controllers? So like these controllers they've got here are, I don't know, what would you say? They're like 20 times the size of the real thing. Mm-hmm. What if you had a controller that was 1/20th the size of the real thing?
Oh, so about like 3 times as big as those Game Gears that Sega released.
Yeah, exactly.
Or to be fair,
with no big window.
The Famicom,
but the big window was the screen. Go ahead.
The Famicom Classic Mini had small control pads to scale because they were wired in, and they recreated that. So whereas for the NES Classic Mini, we all had controllers that were the right size. You didn't get that if you bought your Famicom Mini in Japan, so they've kind of already been there.
I'm thinking about 1-inch across controllers, though. Like, the mechanics of just making the buttons work independently would be an accomplishment. But I want to see people try to play games on a balance board that's 1/30th the regular size. I think that's important for my scientific activity, which is watching people embarrass themselves. My hypothesis is very complicated, and I'll spare you all the details right now.
I will say, I think we need more things rooted in anecdotes about Nintendo history, sort of like that bowling alley one, even though they didn't really kind of, like I said, they didn't follow through as much as they could have done with that. But I believe it's Miyamoto as opposed to Gunpei Yokoi, but I could be conflating the two of them. But at least one of them has, so there's some stories about how they would just used to like get in the tub on the premises. Now, I'm assuming this would not be that factory, the old factory that's been turned into the museum.
Right.
That Miyamoto did mention that when he first came onto the company, like they were still doing stuff there. But presumably, one of the later headquarters, he would just, he would just like get in the tub and start getting ideas about stuff. Rather than like going home,
So like the big idea soak.
We need the sort of, romanticized version of that rather than the crushing, I'm not going to clock out at the risk of incurring the wrath of Yamauchi version, So.
Are we going to call this the Mario Time Spa?
So, you need some beautiful, colourful, thing, and like, again, the screens around it with like ideas of games that were going to come out, as represented by concept art and, models and stuff like that, all sort of going around the person that gets to be in the tub, as if they were conjuring it from their own minds and it was encircling them, something like that.
Oh, God.
So that's almost okay. So I had kind of a similar idea, but I went a different direction with it.
That's haunting that you had a similar idea to that.
Well, so there is somewhere in a museum a almost like easy to miss door that just says Miyamoto Simulation on top of it. And you come to it and you're like, holy shit, what is this going to be? Are we in like a being John Malkovich situation here? And so you get through it and then you realize that it locks behind you and you're outside. And basically, like, it's like, well, now go find ideas, like, go produce the next Nintendogs or Pikmin, you fucking loser. And that's basically it. Like, go find inspiration outside. Touch grass, nerd.
Wow, it's dark.
It's
harsh. It's not even dark. It's just harsh. It's like,
I don't know. I feel
you shipped a bad
Nintendo
game.
has contempt for its users. It's just seeping through every minute of this museum video.
It's not like, that you get into the Miyamoto room and then there's this huge, massive stack of paper and you kind of go, what could that be? And then you look closer at the very first page and it says Untitled Paper Mario Script. And then you realise it's your job to put it in the shredder and it's going to take fucking ages.
You have to fold them first, though, and then you shred them. So it takes the extra effort of folding them into origami and then running them through a shredder anyway.
Oh, maybe like your task is to draw perfectly, like exactly the same, like toads. And if there's like any deviation at all, you have to shred them.
I actually think, with the Hanafuda cards, don't count towards the coins. You have to, that's real money. But like, some kind of drawing activity probably would be fun for kids. You know, we're going to teach you to draw Mario, which isn't that complicated. There's a fucking song, but just something to kind of like take up space in the museum and consume time. I'm trying to think of what would be like a fun representation of some of the past business ventures they had. What is it? NB Block, the Lego that Nintendo will definitely not speak about now because of how deep they are in with Lego. There's an activity where you build things with NB Block and then hide them before your Lego partners realize you've done something. You just have to like jam them into a desk and stuff. Just wedge them in there deep. I don't know. Like, I feel like what I would really want out of this, besides the silliness, what I'd really want is like an actual dive into, you know, what stuff we've not seen, stuff we don't get to see. You know, here's an iterative step on a piece of hardware. Here is, like, a lot of times it seems like they've only got like one version of hardware on display. Like, here are all the versions we had of it. What if there was a wall that just showed you every 3DS version they ever made? Like all the special like prints and stuff. Just one big wall of them. Like, that would be pretty cool. Because you'd see somebody like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
And then you go read the sign.
Or like every version of the N64 that was ever released. You know,
sure.
All of those weird Pokemon versions and all that kind of stuff, and the translucent ones and all that kind of stuff. That'd be really cool.
Why can't I play games that like never truly saw the light of day in there? Like some fucking Satellaview shit that nobody's ever played.
And prototype systems and stuff like that. Like, you know, they have
those.
I'd like
to see finally that cat on a pogo stick demo that people kept talking about for the 3DS.
I don't understand how people were that excited about it. Like, it was neat, but that's it.
I want to see it.
Yeah,
okay.
like it'd be cool if you could play maybe like the Game World Zelda demo. That would be or Space World Zelda demo. You know, the serious Zelda Link one.
Yes.
Remember like in the 90s, I guess, like there were like these giant arcades where like you could play like kind of a MechWarrior like game.
Yep.
You could pay big money, so maybe like in the basement they could have that, except that, you know, it ends up being Steel Diver, basically. You're playing Steel Diver against...
Oh my god.
Like 30 on 30.
I thought I misheard you when you said Steel Diver. I was like, what? What game did you say?
Steel Diver.
No. Oh, yeah. Brain Still's like, no, I didn't say Steel Diver. That's not possible.
That's the thing. It's an example of why they don't tend to like show stuff that they have shelved or whatever, isn't it? Because that Steel Diver was a sort of DS demo that then they came back to as a 3DS almost launch game. So they had Star Fox 2 was shelved for ages, and then eventually they put it on the Super Nintendo Mini and NSO and all that. So yeah, that's just you never kind of feel like they're going to give you a glimpse at almost anything like that, even though in many cases it's going to be infinitesimally small probability that they would actually do something with it. But you know, there's like they go back with some regularity, some kernel or something is an idea that they could, you know, Star Fox 2 and Star Fox Command and, you know, stuff like that. Like, so they're like, no, that stays in the vault. You don't get to see it. I think you kind of always felt like that's the approach they'd have.
Not a fully fleshed idea, but like basically I'm seeing this museum, like I kind of wish this museum were more of a Willy Wonka type thing. In the giant controller room, I think they need a giant robotic operating buddy that just picks you up and spins you on a plane.
I love the idea that the spinning, the discs. That's what I really was just like. Oh no, it's a death trap.
Yes,
absolutely. Just have toes instead of Oompa Loompas. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And some kids definitely have it coming.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's true. All kids, really.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, like, as we were headed down the Wonkavator here, like, I had something flash in and I've just lost it. I'm not sure what it was, but I mean, the boat ride in the Gene Wilder movie where it gets really haunting and stuff What if there was like a virtual reality boat ride where you just rode through Nintendo history, but you saw all the seediest shit?
Yeah, I've got better. I can do you better. It's the boat ride from the sort of prelude to the final battle in Super Mario Sunshine, and it's way more haunting than the Wonka one. Because it's really slow, and it's like, all right, squirt a little bit left, squirt a little bit right. Oh, no, just no, I've hit the sides and I'm dead. I'm in the lava. It's
sure are.
Yeah, that's a boat ride.
My mind went to the Virtual Boy graphics, really. Like just uncomfortably red and like.
What if there was a giant? What if there was a giant Virtual Boy?
Yeah.
A human-sized Virtual Boy.
Yeah, one person for each eye. You see,
yeah.
Right.
So if we
and
were
both of them are just looking at each other, like, "Do you see 3D?"
If we were like telepathically linked, like the people in Pacific Rim, like we'd be seeing in 3D, but we can't.
I think we were telepathically linked because we all made our way to this answer at the same time.
Well, I think
also,
we've made it before. Like,
the Virtual Boy controller itself, like if you've never held it, is a fucking nightmare. Like there's buttons everywhere. It's an absolute. It's the product of.
It basically tried to do it, but it was like symmetrical, wasn't it? That was the thing.
Right.
It was like start and select would basically be an A again, and and you had the two D-pads, which makes some sense for 3-dimensional kind of thing. But you're almost there. It's like two. But obviously, they hadn't had an analog stick yet. But yeah, that's the weird thing. Is like the N64 controller is a little bit like a Virtual Boy controller with a third prong grafted onto it.
Yes,
but
it also has all the power.
If you really mix them together, where it's like no, you have two means of directional input. And you made them analog sticks. You are getting pretty close to what modern controllers became, but they didn't really quite fully mesh those ideas together.
And the absence of them actually makes them feel weirder. Like than if it was just a more traditional controller, or like it just feels like a very weird thing to hold. But also, it has the batteries that power the unit in it, so it weighs an extra amount of weight.
Yeah, and it takes 6 AA's, right?
Yeah,
God,
you really want to hold that all the time.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now on Wikipedia. What are those two buttons on the back, the bottom triggers? Are they just triggers?
They're like shoulder buttons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just in a weird place because they hadn't figured that out yet.
Yeah, what a weird controller. Holy crap.
What if two people have their heads wedged in the Virtual Boy, the giant Virtual Boy, and two other people are actually, you could probably put the controllers under the people looking in the giant Virtual Boy. So yeah, they're leaning on the controller to control it, but they have to coordinate, but also they're not seeing the same thing. To me, this is worth at least one virtual coin. Maybe even two. Mario Hairdresser. I don't have any kind of descriptor for that beyond the phrase Mario Hairdresser.
Also, why the hell is that there a giant Wii U gamepad where somebody has to jump on it to honk the fucking horn in Mario Kart?
They couldn't find enough LCD panels.
I guess, Mario Kart 8 is old enough to be in that museum, but it is also still like #1 in Japan's software charts quite often, so maybe it's a bit too much sort of dissonance to put that in the museum.
I'm still stuck on Mario Hairdresser. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there with this idea. Biomechanical Marios that grow hair, and you have to cut their hair. And it just grows back for the next patron. I think this is it. I think this is money. And we can charge more for admission to the museum now because of this. I do like building a big touristy thing in Kyoto, a city that's famously fucking sick of this touristy shit. So that's cool. Thanks for listening to Your Neighbor's Nintendo. Alright. Let's do our last email. I'll read it. Bikonite writes, "Hey all, I need your help. Nintendo characters are now a pantheon of gods. Which one be the fertility god? I got some praying to do and I need all the help I can get. Yamauchi bless you. What Nintendo character has become the god of fertility?"
So my mind went to Yoshi for basically eggs. Yoshi actually has Yoshis coming out of its eggs.
Sometimes anyway. Yeah, I don't know. You know, other times it's just like, well, this egg is red, and when I hit someone with it, some stars will come out. Sure. I don't know what kind of biology creates that scenario.
or in a Smash Brothers context, it's this egg came out of me and it's got Captain Falcon in it.
It's got Captain Falcon in it, and he's fucking dead now because I've cheaped him off the edge.
So most fertile, then who's the most virile?
Oh, well, look, to me, there's one answer that Nintendo's been trying to foist on us, and that is Waluigi. Waluigi, in some of his, like, sports celebrations, went through this period where he always had the rose in his mouth. Like, that is clearly meant to be some sort of appeal to his, you know, kind of, virility, dare I say.
So he did the DX crotch chop, John. Mm-hmm. Waluigi was at the height of DX doing the crotch chop.
But to me, I feel like that's just Waluigi being like the kind of the loser character in a teen, you know, horny comedy. Like Waluigi's not actually getting any. Like he's being sneered at.
I think you're still describing DX. I actually think if you were going to go with the most virile character, it's Ray. I mean, how could you be more masculine?
No.
like what more does that man need? He doesn't even stop to ask for directions during a tsunami. Like what degree of virility can you produce beyond his? That man's so virile, he walks into a room and multiple people conceive. He doesn't even need to do anything. They're just, oh fuck. He has that kind of aura. That man made the bear need to get to know him better. Mm-hmm. During a fire.
Yeah,
logic goes out the window when he's in the room.
Walks into a room and the goldfish starts swimming. Stop swimming, as they say.
because he struck them pregnant and they're fish. Doesn't even make any sense. He's too virile.
I was just going to say, if they hadn't sort of made Bowser disown the Koopa kids, because they seem to, well, no, Bowser Jr. maybe is the biological progeny, but the Koopa kids, so to speak, are like hired help. That's sort of
I guess.
That's how they kind of characterize it now. If that wasn't the case, I mean, Bowser would have to be like the leader in the clubhouse because
you're right, but I have another candidate.
Go on.
It's fucking Rex.
Oh, it's too easy. It's way too easy. Bloody hell. Yeah. No, it's true.
Yeah.
But for those of you who have not finished Xenoblade 3, it won't be obvious at all. But if you have, it's like it's slapping you in the face in a very real sense.
But it's not just the virility. It's the consistency and the time frames he must have been working under.
Oh yeah, that's military precision applied to something that we don't normally associate with the military, I would say.
I want to get this phase of my life out of the way at one time.
I guess, yeah, it's going to have to be some sort of hitherto, like, unseen period maybe, and it's like where he's like a little bit older than in the picture, but before he lost his eye, and then he'll be peak fertility god Rex. That's the thing, isn't it? It's and that makes it really quite an interesting matchup then when you get to Future Redeemed and we've got Rex and Shulk coexisting, because then the sort of descriptors on their boss battle energy bars would be God Cleaver Shulk and Fertility God Rex. So what happens when you put those two together?
Maybe that's how he lost the eye. It's like, no. Maybe they got to this world and he's kind of saw Rex looking around. He's like, no, we're not doing this. We are not doing this. You have enough of these already. It's time to stop. Because you think, all right, so they're not aging anymore. Like, you've got to think at least Shulk's at least had the thought of like, what if he meets? Oh fuck, no, we can't deal with this. I'm not having any part of this shit. And just immediately getting in the way. which also raises the question of like, actually, there is another. The Napon are also notorious for their Ricky in particular is notorious for his love 'em and leave 'em attitude. Doesn't he have like 8 kids? It's
I think there's references to somewhere, but I can't remember the specifics.
But it's a lot because he gets yelled at because he basically conceived all these children and left. Turns out virility is everywhere in the Nintendo universe, but fertility is a different question altogether. And fertility, if you're using a Greek pantheon here, usually they have the fertility goddess, but they have other goddesses that are also fertility. What's the right word for it? Avatars?
Oh,
adjacent. Yeah, like they have some degree of fertility in their symbology. So like Hera sometimes has fertility as well. So you could have more than one. But I don't know what another good example would be, because broadly speaking, Nintendo. Oh, it's Bayonetta. Like if she's in the neighborhood, like you don't actually have to show them with children. You just have to show that there is an Eros-like quality to their projection, and that's usually enough in Indo-European cosmologies, and you're good to go. I think we've got candidates here. We've got stuff to work with.
But she does have a kid in the canon, so that's something.
That's true. It's not a lot, but I mean, it's not like Aphrodite had a bunch of kids. I think she had one. So like it's more about the vibes. It's more what you're looking for. I mean, ultimately, like Demeter is in a sense a fertility avatar as well, but that's for plants. Ain't nobody asking who make the plants fuck. That's not what Nintendo's here to do in this cosmology.
And yet, after the Yoshis, my other obvious answer was going to be the Toads. Because there are so freaking many of them, and clearly they're toads, they're mushroom people, they probably spread their spores all over the place.
Propagate more than
reproduce. They reproduce asexually.
Toads are well, actually, so I googled, are mushrooms fertile? Because I wanted to see, like, is there something about fertility that,
how'd that go precludes... for you, Guillaume?
Well, the Gulbenkian Garden website, I don't know what the Gulbenkian Garden is, but basically it says, like, mushrooms have sex. Fungi have sex. Reproduction usually takes place at this time of year between the autumn and the winter, usually in the following way. Spores find other genetically compatible ones and fuse together. It's as if the fungi were having sex.
So, mushrooms have sex is the name of the episode, by the way.
Yeah. Just shake a toad next to another one, and nature finds its course.
Is fungi have sex funnier? I feel like it is. I feel like if you say it out loud, it's funnier.
Well, there's an alliteration possibility there, but I don't think even you can get that on the website.
It's fine. It's fine. I mean, I haven't been stopped yet. I agree there's a limit, but until I find it, it is theoretical at best. Wait. Whoever the Mordanian is the fertility god. Because all those people have the same voice, implying they're deeply genetically linked. Somebody
thinking they're like
Mordain,
the multiple man from X-Men. It's just like this one guy that's just copied himself loads of times.
Well, that might be it too. I was just thinking like they're all brothers. And there is some man who's just his genetics are immensely powerful. And no matter how many partners he takes, no matter how many times he produces a child, they end up the same. And 2, he never stops. He is John. Who was the jackhammer?
Oh, what? Vince McMahon, the genetic jackhammer?
yeah, the Mordanian,
which is actually, in retrospect, completely horrific and disgusting.
It's terrible.
I mean, it was bad at the time, but it was kind of like, haha.
It's just like, it's alliteration. It's perfect.
It was like tasteless. Tasteless. Now it's actually.
Well, we're gonna redeem it and make it. We're gonna redeem it and make it a Xenoblade 2 character instead. Oh, Jesus Christ! This was a bad email. We shouldn't have picked it. I'm glad we did. Are there any other like obvious tie-ins to like? I don't know, like, who's your god of the forge here? It's definitely not Waluigi. That's not... That man has never held a hammer in his life. It's DK. Like, Hephaestus is not regarded as in the highest terms among the gods. Basically just
think it has to be Egad.
But Egad's smart. I don't remember Hephaestus ever being depicted as particularly... Like, he's motivated, he's a great craftsman, but he's not like a genius. Dude, that's more in Athena space.
Yeah, I don't know if Egad is a genius. He's more of a Q, to Luigi's James Bond. I don't know.
that one fell apart on you, didn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, if you invented Gooigi, would you deserve to be called a genius? I don't know.
So, yes, but also no. You did it. We're all very impressed isn't the right word. Stunned?
I love also if you actually play the kind of I think it's the remake maybe of Luigi's Mansion on 3DS. I forget exactly how it went now. It's where like it was kind of the suggestion was that he'd invented Gooigi, and then just as a little addendum, a trivial almost kind of follow up to that, had invented time travel to send Gooigi back in time so that it could be tested properly by Luigi in the past, and then it comes back for actual use. So. Yeah, Gooigi's one thing. He did canonically invent time travel as well. So
he invented time travel as a means to test another invention.
It's kind of like, you know what? I've got really tired of all these bureaucrats with clinical trials and all that. Screw them. I'll invent time travel to negate all this sort of stuff.
It'd be like, what if they invented airplanes in order to test something incredibly mundane and useless? All right. Well, that's going to do it for the show this week. Emails, as we said, they go to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. We need you to put more dumb emails in our inbox. We appreciate all emails, including ones that aren't dumb. But ones that are dumb, I mean, they're dumb. And who doesn't love dumb? Dumb is great. So please send us your questions, thoughts, comments, ideas, games, and whatever other weird email style detritus you wish to put in our inbox to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. And there's a plug this week. Greg, what is that plug?
Yes, well, yeah, I did want to mention a new episode of Radio Trivia Podcast Edition with, of course, Michael, TYP Cole hosted, but also Johnny. Johnny is there on hand to guess the games, and there's quite a number of interesting selections there. I enjoyed the songs and everything, and always a pleasure to hear from Johnny and TYP again. But sometimes we do a kind of, a little teaser, maybe say give away one of the games ahead of time. I won't do that. All I will say is that this particular episode, you will hear TYP, the vocal talents of TYP, doing a sort of impersonation that is not of a Charles Martinet voice.
Oh.
Yes. And you're intrigued now, aren't you? And I can't give it away because it may, spoil one of the actual games. But I thought it was actually...
You're saving it for the show, Greg, of course.
He saved it for the show and he left it all out on the field, and let's just mix the metaphors a little bit more. But it's well worth listening to, I think. And not, of course, just for that reason.
Not a Charles Martinet voice, but also not a whoever replaced him voice.
Nice.
I found the loophole here.
No, it isn't that, but okay. I think you'll enjoy it when you hear that. But yeah, no, with regard to the closing music for this week,
yes.
the subject of music, of course. Now, The Pokemon World Championships have concluded a little bit before we recorded this particular episode. We had a request in ahead of time there that was somewhat predicated on the notion of maybe they might say or show something for the next Pokemon Legends game, Z to A or Z to A, that was announced, a while ago with nothing more than, kind of concept video or whatever you'd call that was there. Of course, no such thing actually happened. The only thing they kind of added on to the end of the World Championships was, I think, a confirmation of when the mobile version of the trading card game is going to launch, I think, in October, perhaps. Yeah, but I can't remember the details there, but not necessarily what was hoped for. From Donald, requester in this case, and news editor, of course, for Nintendo World Report, but still, I like the song in question, so I do still want to use it. So Donald said, again, the spirit of not wanting to spoil things has to be a little bit coy about the title of this song. And I think, even though I played Legends Arceus pretty thoroughly, but not absolutely thoroughly, and I'm pretty sure that means I have not actually fought this battle that he's referring to, that the song comes from. So it says, I'm not sure I can link a video without spoiling it for those on the show who haven't been to the fight in question. But it's the theme of the quote-unquote Pokemon wielder that represents the final storyline trainer battle in Pokemon Legends Arceus. Some notes on the song. Donald says, yes, the instrumentation is intentional. In the game, unless you hit A to acknowledge the fight is happening, the song actually stops 17 seconds in. I don't understand that, but there you go.
Wow.
Said fight is the hardest fight I've ever played in an official Pokemon game. A champion level team immediately followed back-to-back fights against a box mascot legendary without any opportunity to heal. And bear in mind, when I think of Donald, I think of his forum handle, Shaman. So yes, this is a man, I'm gonna guess, has just about done everything Pokemon you can do. And this is apparently
a challenge.
As difficult a fight as there is. So that is some serious stuff. And the music is predictably, kind of urgent, and kind of stirring to go along with that.
Well, on that, it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.